New Zealand is a highly developed, incredibly wealthy country. Yet right now, 169,300 children live in severe material hardship. The wealth to feed and house them exists, but the government has secured the padlock anyway. For years, New Zealand outperformed many of its global peers in child well-being, but that progress has stalled and reversed. We have actively slipped down the international rankings, falling behind countries like Lithuania, Latvia, Italy, and Portugal. This report quotes Children's Commissioner Dr. Claire Ahmad, who describes our current position as a national shame. She points out that for a small, relatively rich nation, our position at the bottom of these rankings is inexcusable. Looking further down that same report, we see what material hardship looks like on a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. It means households that cannot afford basic necessities like fresh fruit or heating. It means children waking up in cold, damp, overcrowded housing and heading to school hungry. Widespread childhood poverty in a developed economy is not a natural economic occurrence. It is a systemic failure by those in power to protect the most basic rights of their youngest citizens. When challenged on these outcomes, the government typically frames poverty as an ongoing, complex challenge, one that requires making tough economic choices with limited funds. They even go so far as to publish claims on the Beehive's own portfolio pages, stating that there has been no significant change in child poverty rates under the current coalition. This chart directly contradicts that official narrative. The actual data shows a sharp, statistically significant spike in hardship, climbing from 10.6% in 2022 to 14.3% in 2025. We are setting aside the press releases to audit the Crown's own paper trail. We're going to see exactly how they budgeted for the hunger of their own tamariki. In September 2024, official advisors handed ministers an invoice. They calculated that meeting the legislated targets to end child poverty would require an investment of roughly $3 billion per year. Child Poverty Reduction Minister Louise Upston rejected that official advice. She claimed the $3 billion price tag was too expensive for the government to fund. Now place that number beside a second financial decision made by the exact same government, using the same fiscal envelope in the same year. While the $3 billion for children was rejected, the government's own impact statement shows they approved $2.92 billion to restore tax breaks for residential landlords. The money was available, the government simply chose to spend it on property owners instead of children. This trajectory maps out the Child Poverty Reduction Act 2018. It legally bound the government to reach a hardship target of 9%. Internal memos warned the minister that new policies would severely miss the 9% target. Instead of changing policies, the government moved the goalposts, lowering the target to 11%, but the actual hardship rate blew past it, peaking at 14.3%. To understand how we hit 14.3%, look at the specific policy levers. Minister David Seymour slashed school lunch funding to a strict $3 per meal as part of a coalition mandate. The Auditor General investigated that rollout and found significant failures. Waste hit 20,000 uneaten meals daily, and barely half met nutritional standards. The inquiry also noted that the minister's office kept a $4 million private charity bid quiet, while the surviving sole corporate supplier saw its contract fattened by an additional $18 million. Beyond the school gates, the government also targeted the welfare state. A new traffic light system doubled the rate of benefit sanctions in its first year, falling hardest on households with tamariki Maori. These sanctions were increased during a collapsing labor market. The government demanded people find work, while the economy offered 47% fewer job vacancies than it did 2 years ago. You cannot sanction people into jobs that do not exist. These systems are engineered mechanisms that push marginalized families deeper into hardship. Since 2022, 47,500 more children have been pushed into severe material hardship. They represent a 39% increase in just 3 years. The direct consequence of this policy architecture is seen every winter. Hospital wards fill with children suffering from preventable respiratory illnesses that can and do lead to death in a rich country. This burden is not shared equally. There's a massive 5.3-fold gap in poverty rates between Pacific and Asian children, while 1 in 4 tamariki Maori currently live in hardship. A disparity this vast and precise is not an accident. It is architecture, a system doing exactly what its architects designed it to do.
In Te Ao Māori, the Pātaka kai, the raised storehouse, is a licha of mona. A leader's monarchy-tanga is measured by how fast they open that storehouse to the hungry child and the struggling whānau. Aotearoa in 2026 is a full Pātaka. The wealth is there, but the Crown has spent its term forging a padlock out of lowered targets, slashed lunches, and tax breaks for those who already have enough. We need to demand a cross-party child poverty accord. Confront your local MP with the receipts from this audit and ask them, in writing, if they will commit to it. Rangatiratanga asks us to build our own ladders, whānau-led, iwi-led, and marae-led. Support the local collectives carrying the load that the government set down, until the measure of leadership in this country is how fast the storehouse opens.